Hi everyone, welcome to GNANA concept-based digital learning. I am A.Sunitha, PGT Social Studies from TSWREIS Boys, Kondur. Dear students, today we are going to learn Social Studies lesson, Social Movements in Our Time. Let us see the subtopics: American Civil Rights Movement, Human Rights Movement in the USSR, Anti-Nuclear and Anti-War Movement, Globalization, Marginalized People and Environmental Movement, Greenpeace Movement, Bhopal Gas Disaster, Movement Against Dam on Narmada River, Movement of Women for Social Justice and Human Rights, Social Mobilization on Human Rights, Mira Baby Movement. Let us see the learning objectives of this lesson. At the end of the session, you will be able to describe the social movements of India and able to analyze the various causes that led to human rights movement and also explain how environmental issues can affect the people of nation and write a brief note on Greenpeace movement. Let us see the introduction. In the recent time, we have witnessed a great moment in our state where people participated in large number, campaigned actively for the common cause. Now, look at this picture. Yes, this is the picture of Telangana movement, and this movement took place to remove the regional discrimination between Andhra and Telangana. And after this movement, we got a separate state, Telangana. And apart from this, you can also see the pictures of the another movement, that is movement of farmers at New Delhi against three farm acts which was passed by the parliament. And let us see the background of this movement. During the 20th century, the world was dominated by great wars, revolutions, and the emergence of German fascism, Soviet socialism, and Western liberalism, and etc. And the Second World War came to an end, and many colonies got independence like India, China, Indonesia, Nigeria, Egypt, etc. And a new era began in 1950s, and this was the period of economic growth and prosperity, but also period of growing tension in many countries where they demanded or they denied the equal rights. So today we are going to discuss some more movements to the topic social movements in our times. So let us start with the American Civil Rights Movement. Let us learn about here the Civil Rights Movement. It was a movement for equal treatment of Afro-Americans or Black Americans. So they fought against the rules that permitted the segregation of blacks and whites in schools, buses, and public places. And they also fought against the discrimination in appointments, housing, and voting rights, etc. So it is largely a non-violent movement with massive demonstrations, marches, civil disobedience, and boycott of discriminatory services. So here, on the one of the important boycott, or we can say one of the important long march was important long boycott of buses by the black people. Okay, he was in Montgomery, which was led by Martin Luther King, and it caused a huge loss to the company. So, Dr. Martin Luther King, on 20th August 1963, more than 2 lakh people, they marched to Washington demanding for the Civil Rights Act, full and fair employment, decent housing, right to vote, and integrated education system, where Dr. Martin Luther King gave his historic speech, Have a Dream. And many people agreed with Dr. King that it was possible to achieve equality for all the people through peaceful means and persuading the government to pass necessary laws. And finally, laws were passed and implemented. Human rights movement in the USSR. Eastern Europe was under the influence of USSR and it did not allow multi-party elections and free uncensored press and freedom of expression. So government have the fear of conspiracies to destabilize them. So they have kept a close control over the activities of people and hence people demanded for the freedom from USSR control and they received support from the communist parties, okay, UK and USA. And there are famous leaders who led this movement. They are Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a famous writer and Andrew Sakharov was the nuclear scientist. These were the two important leaders who led the human rights. And a new leadership emerged in USSR under President Gorbachev and he initiated a process of reform called Glasnost to bring greater freedom for the people. Anti-nuclear and anti-war movement. During 1970s and 1980s, we saw a new movement, the movement against the war and nuclear weapons. So the entire world witnessed the nuclear bombing on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1946. And besides this, countries like USA, USSR, France and Britain, they started building their arsenals of nuclear weapons. So, during the Cold War between the USA and USSR and American war with Vietnam, the entire world constantly under the fear of another world war. And if the war broke out and the nuclear weapons were used, the entire mankind would be wiped out. So, hence, as a result, thousands of intellectuals and scientists campaigned against these nuclear weapons and insisted USA and USSR to end the arms race. So, American war with Vietnam. Vietnam was a poor nation in comparison with its opponent and it is largely covered with forest and they have used the guerrilla warfare techniques to fight the war. And in this way, nearly 8 to 30 lakhs Vietnam military and civilians were killed, apart from equally large number of Cambodians and Laotians. Let us see America in Cold War. America was a well-developed country and after the Second World War, it emerged as a superpower nation in the world. And America used arsenals like chemical weapons and napalm bombs. And America did not see any civilian death, but a large number of military were killed and many were physically handicapped. But later, America felt that there is no threat to America from innocent Vietnamese. So, moreover, American people were not ready to send their children to far off Vietnam. And so the people protested and forced the government to end the war. And hence, finally, US soldiers they left Vietnam in 1975. Competition in nuclear arms. After the end of the war, many countries started competing with each other to increase the nuclear arms. And the common people realized that this arm race is unsafe and threat to world. So there was a massive protest to reduce the nuclear arms and work towards the peace. As a result, USA and USSR started talks to cut down their nuclear arms. So, USA and USSR started their talks, which was called as SALT, SALT. What is this? Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. But these talks were unsuccessful. Next, the largest and the complex treaty was signed in 1991 called as START, S-T-A-R-T. It is a strategic arms reduction treaty which was implemented in 2001, and finally it resulted in the removal of 80% of nuclear weapons after the talks. Chernobyl accident in USSR. A major accident took place in Chernobyl nuclear plant in USSR. It caused a death of large number of workers, and it also contaminated the atmosphere in many countries of Europe. Its effect resulted in new awareness about the nuclear power among the people. And it also helped the people to merge the anti-war concern with the concern of environmental protection. So, globalization, marginalized people, and environmental movement. What is globalization? Globalization is the process of interaction and integration among the people, companies, and the government worldwide. Accelerated since 18th century due to advance in transportation and communication technology. So let us see the impact of globalization. The economic and the political change happening around the world wide in 1990s on the name of globalization. So the impact of this globalization is seen on the lives of underprivileged and poor, and also the tribal people, poor farmers, landless, and women. And urban unorganized workers have been the worst hit. So these people, they don't have proper access to formal education, no nutrition and health, and no jobs, no legal and constitutional remedies. So, what is the threat of this globalization? There is a threat and eviction we can see. During the last few decades, tribal people were threatened by commercial farming, mining, corporations, and dam projects. So, large companies, they find rare resources in these rural areas like minerals, rare plants, animals, and water, which resulted in the eviction of tribal people and farmers' population. Finally, it led to the environmental movement. Greenpeace movement. In 1971, American wanted to do an underwater nuclear test in Alaska, and volunteers set out in a ship to protest against the nuclear test in a small ship, and the ship was named as Greenpeace. So this became the name of the movement. So let us see headquarters. Greenpeace movement, it has spread over 40 countries, and the headquarters of this movement is in Amsterdam, Holland, and it became the important international non-governmental organization. Let us see the effect of this Greenpeace movement or the nuclear test on ozone layer. nuclear test it causes. Scientists discovered that nuclear test causes pollution, which deplete the protective ozone layer. And ozone layer in the atmosphere is very, very important because it absorbs harmful rays of the sun. And due to pollution, the average temperature on the earth increases steadily and causes the melting of polar ice caps on the two poles of the earth. So let us see the effect of this. The water level in oceans and seas. Polar ice caps melts and joins the oceans. The water level of the oceans and seas rises, causing submergence of land in the coastal areas all over the world, like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, India, and Indonesia. But people face severe problems of flooding and submergence because they live along the sea coast and places inside the continent, okay, that people face erratic rainfall. What is this erratic rainfall? That is unseasonal rainfall, excess rainfall, and droughts. So this movement taken up the impact of climate change and later developed the idea of sustainable development. Next we'll see the Bhopal gas disaster. Bhopal gas disaster related movement took place in 1984. It was a Union Carbide factory where the poisonous gas leaked out of the factory and thousands of people lost their lives and many more are still suffering from its illness and from its effect. So it is considered as the worst industrial disaster in the world. The Dow Company and the CEO. And later, this Dow Company was purchased by the Dow Company and the CEO of this company was Warren Anderson. And let us see the demands, what were implemented by the people and how they were fulfilled. The people of Bhopal having fighting for four main demands, that is proper medical treatment of the victims, adequate compensation based on the international standards, fixing criminal responsibility on the management of the company, and finally steps to prevent such disaster in the future. Now what are the results? Enormous sum was spent on medical facilities, but not paid the compensation as per the international standards, and there was no proper inspecting mechanism. So let us see the boycott. Many people across the globe boycotted the products which were made by the Dow Company, and even today social mobilization continues when the Dow Company sponsored the Olympics in London. People across the globe, they signed a petition against it, the Dow Company, and multiple organizations around the world pointed the unethical alliance of Olympic body with the Dow Company. Movements against dams on the Narmada River. Building large multi-purpose dams is a important part of the Indian plan development from 1950. And it includes the large dams like Bhakra Nangal Dam, Hirakud and Nagarjuna. So let us see first the advantages of the dam. Dam, it stores huge amount of water. It would irrigate large tracts of land and also generate electricity and also control and prevent the floods and droughts. Disadvantages of the dams. Cost of the dam was huge and there was delay in the construction of the dam. Not irrigated the land which was proposed and not produced much electricity because of less water storage assumption than what they have assumption. And thousands of people, trees and animals were displaced or evicted. No compensation was paid to them. So for this, people protested. People who stood displaced from the project started movement against the construction of dam. They demanded for fair compensation, proper rehabilitation and afforestation to compensate the loss of forest area. And Sardar Sarovar project expected to be built with the money borrowed from the World Bank. And after intense protest from the people, the World Bank decided to withdraw its fund. So this movement, called as Narmada Bachao Andolan against Sardar Sarovar Dam, and they failed to stop the construction of dams. Next, we'll see the Silent Valley movement, which took place from 1973 to 1985. When it was proposed to build a dam across two rivers flowing in the Silent Valley in Western Ghats in Kerala, many educated people, they realized that it would be disastrous for rare species of animals and plants. Example, long-tailed macaw. Macaw is one species of monkey. So, major movements developed against the dams and in favor of saving the Silent Valley. People across the state were mobilized from Kerala. Shastra Sahitya Parishad is an organization working for the popularization of science. So people appealed to courts against felling of trees and Kerala High Court ordered to stop the cutting of trees. Finally, government decided to give up the dam project and convert the Silent Valley into a national park in 1985. State for Science and Environment. Center for Science and Environment was founded by Anil Agarwal in 1980 to study the environmental and the developmental issues in India. And this organization began with the publication of its series, Citizens Report of State of India's Environment in 1982. These reports have become authoritative references on environmental issues. You can also visit the website, that is www.cseindia.org. Movement of Women for Social Justice and Human Rights. Women have led many important movements in the recent time. Now let us learn about the anti-Iraq movement of Andhra Pradesh. It was named as Adavalu Ekam. Now let's see the achievement in this movement. It's a real achievement of women who studied in the night school at Dubagunta village in Andhra Pradesh. These women were daily wage earners, but their husbands did not earn any money. So they used to sell off the rice, ghee or anything to buy Iraq. And after drinking, they abuse, fight and even beat their children and make their life miserable. So these women were inspired after listening to the story of Sitama in their evening school and requested the Sarpanch to throw the arad and promised to contribute 1 rupee each. But they failed to close the shops. Prohibition of arad. All the women marched out of the village and stopped the cart of authority and asked the owner to throw the liquor and they promised to compensate the loss. But he was terrified and finally was terrified. And from that day, the liquor did not enter the village. In the same way, they surrounded the jeep which was carrying rat and warned the owner that they would lodge a complaint with the magistrate. So, meetings and protests. After this, shops were closed and then no one dared to participate in Arab auction. It took place in 1992 and the news spread to other villages also. Women led marches against the liquor shops and they tried to close down the shops. And after innumerable meetings and protests by women across the state, Iraq was officially banned in October 1993 and it was totally prohibition imposed in 1995. Social mobilization on human rights. Next, we will learn about the social mobilization on human rights in a historical context of Manipur, where Manipur have two geographical terrains, that is hills and valleys. Before independence, these valleys were under the control of princely states and the hills were totally autonomous and they were inhabited by the tribal people. In 1981, the Britishers they established their control over the princely states. Merger agreement. The Kingdom of Manipur signed the merger agreement with the Indian government in 1949, but it was disputed by many tribal people because they don't want to be a part of India, so they started a movement against this merger agreement. Armed Forces Special Power Act. To suppress this tribal movement, Indian government sent the armed forces with some special powers called Armed Forces Special Power Act, that is AFSPA, in 1958. By this act, army forces they abused, harassed, tortured, and even killed many innocent tribal people. And sometimes abused women committed suicide also. So, Thangam Manorama was a 32-year-old woman who met with a custodial death. Because of this incident, many protests took place against this incident in Manipur. Meera Baibi moment. Meera is a word which is taken from a Methi language. And Methi language, it is a mix of Tibeto-Burman language which is usually spoken in Manipur. And Meera Baibi, the meaning of Meera Baibi means torch bearers, and it was formed to prevent the public disorder due to alcohol abuse in 1970. And later it became as the movement for human rights in 1980. Patrolling and boycott. Due to violation of human rights, Meera Baibi, they protested with demonstrations and patrolling the streets at night. Women of every ward, village and town had participated in the patrolling bearing bamboos, wraps and torches on their heads, and they demanded that this AFSPA should be revoked, and they expressed their struggle by boycotting elections and doing hunger strikes. As a part of this struggle, Inam Sharmila did a huge hunger strike for a period of 10 years under house arrest, and government appointed Supreme Court Judge B.P. Jeevan Reddy to solve the problems in Manipur, but still there is no permanent solution was found in for their problem. Let us see the conclusion of our movements. Social movements have raised a diverse demands pertaining to environment, human rights, equality, etc. And these are the powerful means for ordinary people to participate directly in creating the positive change, social change. And these are deeply rooted in values of justice and democracy. Thank you.